locomotive number 4, just after arriving in Jerusalem with a train from Jaffa. And you can see the line was quite nicely organized. This is a picture of Jaffa. I think it's about 1895. The reason being is that by the end of, by 1892-93, the train was quite successful. People came to have a look, but not many traveled on it. Certainly not many tourists. The amount of business was terrible, in fact. Joseph Navon lost all his money in the enterprise and left for France, where he spent the rest of his life. But what is interesting about this picture is that it shows these piles of sleepers, or the Americans call them ties. What does that mean? Perhaps this was the time early in 1895 when the line had almost closed because of lack of business, had fallen into disrepair, but some more money had been raised in France for its improvement. That was the beginning of 1895. So I'm assuming that this picture was taken early in 1895, just around the time that the tracks were improved. This is one of the Bonfils pictures. The Bonfils photographic organization took many photographs, as did Krikorian, the Armenian photographer, who took about a dozen photographs that are now at the Palestine Exploration Fund in London. This is a locomotive on the turntable at Jerusalem Station. Again, a much reproduced picture. These are American locomotives, or rather like those you see in Wild West movies. Although this one has lost its cow catcher at the front. Whether it was taken off or it's through an accident, I don't know. This picture it shows the end of one of the carriages built in France, a typical French light railway carriage. Okay, one of the most interesting group of photographs were taken around 1900. We don't know exactly when a locomotive and train went on a publicity run with a photographer. There were several publicity runs. Sometimes the trains would stop at stations and somebody would get on and bring them biscuits and cheese, and they'd have lunch on the train, and the a few people from the media would come along and write up their experience of the train. We don't know too much about this story. We do know there were 3 or 4 photographs taken by the Bonfils concern. The best prints I found at Princeton University. This is the train at Lydda. You can see the orange groves either side of the track. These generated some of the traffic for the railway.
It's olive trees.
Was it olive trees? Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, my apologies. Olive trees. There was a shot showing orange groves. Thank you. This is around Lake, correct? You can see a goods shed here. This was a small goods shed. Very interesting building, because the buildings themselves were should we say Oriental design, Turkish style design, but a mix of Turkish and French influence. So the little freight shed is actually French influence. I'm not quite sure what influenced the construction of the main station. And here is Szeged, or Edge Szeged, or just Szeged, a station that's been written about very much in the journal Harekebet. This is a newly installed water installation, including a softening device, as I pointed out earlier. In the coastal region, the quality of the water was very poor. And this is the train close to the station. And this is in Deraban, just before the mountain section begins. The train has stopped. It looks as if they're taking off produce or putting on produce from some of the locals. There wasn't a lot of freight traffic. That was the major problem of the train. Most of the freight traffic, perhaps 90%, went one way from Jaffa to Jerusalem. Very little went the other way. There was some animals taken, and it was only after around 1900 that the traffic increased with building equipment as the city of Jerusalem expanded. This is a group of Austrian tourists. In 1895, the photograph is from an album of the Austrian consul in the Israel Museum. As you can see, they're all finely dressed. This is at Deraban. The interesting thing here is the round or porthole windows on the station. We'll see another view in a minute, but those windows changed. I'm not quite sure which way they're going. The train in this direction is towards Jerusalem, but the locomotive is facing towards Jaffa. But it's detached, so maybe they're waiting for another locomotive to turn up and take the train to... Oh, so Sybil's not agreeing with me. But be brief.
In short.
I think that Jerusalem is behind the
Okay, we'll
We are facing
we'll discuss that later. Okay. So this is a group of Austrian tourists. It's 1895 inside in July or August. This is Aaron Aronson, the agronomist, the famous botanist, biologist. Here he is here with a group of tourists, I believe, waiting for the train to Jerusalem. No, okay.
From.
The other way around.
The most important thing is the buffet.
No, I've identified this in photographs I took, and the little hill in the background is still there. I'll talk to you about it afterwards. Okay, we'll try and identify it. Okay, well, wherever it is, it's wherever the train is going, the group is going, it's Deraban Station, and Aronson and a group of people have come to see the flowers in the mountains. The main thing here is, or one aspect of this is the fact that the windows have changed. They're no longer round on the top floor. It probably means that they've rebuilt the station, probably in the mid-1890s, to accommodate more office space. And note also the buffet facilities. This is one of the locomotives at Jerusalem Station with Franciscan monks. I think it's a very nice picture. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to get a copy of a print for my book, but I think it really conjures up what the Jaffa Jerusalem Railway was all about, bringing tourists and pilgrims and religious leaders. A very nice picture. This is a group of Russians, probably around 1909, 1910. The photograph comes from an album at the Jewish National University Library. We don't know the date, but judging by pictures that are dated before and after this one, it's probably about 1908, 1909. And Hen and I are very interested in the fact that there is a canopy under construction at the station. Okay, this is Jerusalem Station with the canopy, also with one of these little four-wheel cars. There were only two of them, and there were about a dozen of these bogie or eight-wheel cars. But these are very rarely mentioned when people write articles on the train. But it's an interesting picture. It may well have been the train that we were discussing earlier, the publicity train, though I doubt it. I think that was a few years earlier. And this is Szeged Station, one of the very few pictures of Szeged Station. And it's a group of American sailors visiting the station in 1909. And this is the Shlush Bridge near Jaffa. The Shlush family were in charge of collecting the money on the railway and sending it to France. They collected all the small change that was used to buy tickets, and they sent the money every now and again by cheque to France after they'd taken their commission. The railway operators trusted them. Credit Lyonnais really wanted this business. It became quite lucrative after around 1900, but the Shlush family retained this business at least until the outbreak of the First World War. This is a nice picture of typical tinted photograph. Around 1900, cities and towns were proud of their railway stations, which featured in their postcards. And probably this is close to the correct colour of the railroad cars, the French-built cars used on the Jaffa Jerusalem Railway. And as you can see, this also has a canopy, and the artist has painted out the Arabic name and replaced it by Ivrit, Jaffa. This picture was reproduced until at least the 1920s. This picture shows a locomotive built by the Borsig Company in 1908. The railway was quite successful by the beginning of the 20th century. The tourism business was booming. People were coming in their hundreds, if not thousands, sometimes boatloads to special conferences or for religious purposes in Jerusalem. This Borsig locomotive of a Malay type, that's two four-wheel units that enabled it to take the sharp curves, and others were followed. You can see it's a mixed train of freight cars.